Hey, MSP community, welcome back. If you've been listening over the last couple days, took a short break for the holidays, but we've been talking a lot about the MSP sales process and how easy it is to build a really basic MSP sales process. So I've been doing a couple of videos. This is the third one. It's the second phase of my MSP sales process that I'm trying to just deliver to MSPs for free, give you guys some place to get a good start and understand what it looks like to have a good quality sales process. So we talked about the right fit call on the last recording. That first initial phone call, I've got somebody on the line. They might be a prospect, they might not. I need to suss out whether they're really a good fit for me. We talked about that. I'll link that recording below so that you can go back and check it out. But as far as today's call, we're going to talk about step two. We're going to talk about the stakeholder interview, which is really that first on-site meeting where we go to meet with the client. We might walk through the office, kind of check out what's going on, meet some of the folks in the building, learn who are the people who are going to help the client make a decision whether or not they want to work with me. We have a couple of objectives in this stakeholder interview. We're going to identify the client's pain, what the client's budget looks like, what their decision making process looks like, and what all the risk is, what all the problems are, and the technology problems that brought them to call me in the first place. We've also got to define next step. So when we get done with this step, of course, our goal is to move to the next step in our sales funnel. In my sales funnel, that is what I call the data collection call. Now, I would argue back and forth a little bit. The stakeholder interview is really data collection, but it's that what can the client tell me about their own security? I'm going to deploy an engineer in the next step to go out and run scans and walk through the network closet and read the serial number on the server and Google it and things like that. So in this particular call, it's really just about building the relationship. My good friend Tom Watson, he did a call with me and the folks over at Ninja when he was working for Ninja, and we talked about our sales process. And he combined my step 2 and 3 into one step, and he would go do the data collection while he was there to talk to the customer. Me, I prefer to separate them. I want my customer to see me as different from the guy that turns the screwdriver and fixes the problems. I really want to put myself up there on a little bit of a pedestal as the expert that they can talk to, and not the guy who just comes in and types really fast and fixes things. That said, depending on the size of your MSP, you may or may not have the flexibility to be able to do that. So understand your mileage may vary, but we'll talk more about that data collection call tomorrow, and you can decide whether or not that really fits into your process to combine those two. So let's talk about the things that we're here for. We're here to define pain. Pain is that age old sales technique, which is identifying that thing that's going to cause the customer to spend $1. When we're trying to identify pain, we're really trying to drive in and figure out the root cause of the thing that's bothering the customer, right? The, hey, my last guy didn't call me back fast enough. Well, they're not upset about the slow callback. They're upset about someone being unable to work while there was a slow callback. So we want to dig into what exactly the client's problem is. We want to really dig in there. We want to try and associate pain to risk, because in this day and age, with cybersecurity driving as much of the IT industry as it is, with compliance and insurance driving as much of the industry as they are, risk is really the thing that is going to cause the customer to make a buying decision, or at least managing risk. And our goal is to help our client manage that risk. So we're going to talk about pain. We're going to talk about risk. We're going to try and tie those two together. Along the way, we want to identify anything that may cause the customer to give us an objection later on in our process. The two biggest objections I've seen is, I'm not the one to make that decision, although this person was meeting with me the whole time, or, well, that's not really in my budget. So I'm going to try and get the decision-making process figured out early, and I'm going to try and get the budget figured out early. My favorite way to identify budget is with a tool called bracketing, and it's right out of Sandler sales techniques. And if you're a Sandler trained sales guy, great, as long as you're a good one. If you're not, it sounds terrible. So practice this a little bit. But the way I'm going to tackle budgeting is to sit down with a prospect halfway through our meeting, and I'm going to say, I'm hearing I'm picking up what you're putting down. I hear what you're saying to me. You're not the first customer that I've seen with problems similar to this. And in my experience, when a customer your size comes to us with technology problems like this, it typically costs them between this number and that number to go solve for these problems, right? Between $3,000 and $4,000. If I were to come back to you with a number like that, can we still be friends, or are you going to bounce me out of here on my ass? And you find a way to say that you're comfortable with. I like to joke about it. I have a little bit of a self-deprecating sense of humor, so it fits my personality. It's really natural. I can just say it. It feels a little uncomfortable to the customer sometimes, and they'll step back and go, "Oh, well, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I probably could spend that." Or maybe they're going to tell me, "Oh crap, that's a whole lot more than I thought." And now we're going to have to go dive back in and see if the customer really wants to solve all of the pain that they have, or if this is one of those things where, yeah, well, they thought it hurt, but they're not going to spend that much money, so they're just going to live with the hurt, right? Let's figure that out early, get it out on stage two, so we never get to presenting a proposal, putting all the work into building a proposal, putting all the work into running network scans and all that for a customer who wasn't going to pay for it anyway. So this is part of get the know early. The other objection that gets us tied up later in the process is the decision maker, right? If we're in front of someone who we think is the decision maker, even if it's the CEO or the owner, it may be that they have to go to a board of directors to get approval to spend money. It may be that they're just not technical and they're afraid to make this decision on their own. So I'm going to ask a few probing questions, like who else in the organization, whose opinion do you really value, or who would you go to talk about these kind of decisions before you make a buying decision, right? Is there a board of directors that maybe you would need me to present to? Is there something we can do to bring those folks along and help them understand? We're going to ask some of those questions because I want them to tell me early, well, my there's this guy in engineering, one of my engineers, he's just a CAD guy, but he knows more about technology than anybody in the building, and I like to talk to him about this kind of stuff. He tackles a lot of this for me. Well, we're going to try and get that guy involved now. We're going to make sure he's there when we present. We're going to talk through what those next steps are and make sure that that person gets invited, because if they're not at the table, it's going to give that customer one more reason to pull back and walk away and not sign on the dotted line when we're ready. So after we've gone through and we've done this stakeholder interview, we've talked to the customer, we've asked them about the problems. We've probably, if you're following the Chartec methodology, we've probably talked to, if you're in a 20-person office, we've probably talked to 10 or 12 people, maybe all of them. If you're in a 50-person office, it's not realistic to talk to everybody, but we want to get somebody out of every department to explain to us how technology either enables their job or where technology falls short and causes them to work too hard, work too slow, have to put in overtime, things like that. We want to understand where their frustrations come from in their technology. We can only do that by interviewing a bunch of humans. Once we collect all that data, then we talk about what we're going to do next, right? We're going to kind of wrap this up. And there's always a consistent wrap up to every stage in our sales process. And that is let the customer know what happens next and kind of get their permission to move to the next step in the process. So at this point, I'm going to explain to my customer, there's going to be 3 more steps to our sales process. I'm going to send an engineer out here tomorrow. He's going to poke around in the server closet, read all the serial numbers, look at all the hardware, make sure that everything passes muster with him. So I'm going to send a guy out here who's a little smarter than me, a little more techie than me. He's going to help me solve for all of that. He's going to run some scans on your network. So somebody's going to have to be here with admin permission so that we can scan a couple of devices. Once he's collected all that data, he and I will sit down and we'll review all that data and we'll connect what you told me today with the technology problems that he finds with old equipment, outdated equipment, misconfigurations, lack of security, those kind of things, so that we can identify that his technical fixes, the fixes to the technical problems he finds, are actually going to solve the problems you and your team are experiencing. So we'll review that, and then we'll touch base with you to make sure that everything that we heard today and that we find tomorrow really jives and sounds like a solution to the problem that you have. Once we're sure all that's right, we'll put pricing to it and we'll come back and we'll do a proposal presentation. If all of that seems like it ought to work, if all that seems good and healthy, we'll sit down with you and the folks whose opinion you value, and we'll make that final presentation. So if we put all that out up front, then the customer knows, hey, this is a 5-step process. It's going to take a couple of days. It's going to take a week or two, and this is what a real sales process looks like. And Mr. Customer, my time is valuable. We're going to do all the steps. We're going to make sure we collect all the data. And while I might give you a ballpark price today, that price may change as we collect data and learn more about the environment. But I want to put some big, wide ballparks out there so that you understand exactly what's going on. So that's kind of step 2 in my sales process. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy, unless you're a real introvert and don't like talking to people. But this is the one where we just go out and talk to the humans and learn about their environment, help understand the customer, maybe how they make money, how technology enables them to make money or gets in the way of them making money. So that's step 2 in my 5-step sales process. We'll be back a couple more days this week to record a couple more videos, walk you through the rest of the process. And then, like I said, like I promised in the first video, I will tie all this together into one playlist and we'll get this out where you can watch it all at once. Thanks so much for hanging out, and I look forward to the next video.